welcome back to BJJ101 podcast, the STOREROOM podcast. I have a very, very special guest today. This is Minenko. He's my brother, so I will introduce him in a moment. And Lucas is back as well, helping out. Eduardo's away, sadly, today. But, yeah, we got some treats today anyway. So, just to start off, Andre, if you can just, introduce yourself, with a little bit of background, what you do for work. Normally we talk a lot about jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. Now, you've practiced jiu-jitsu and stuff before, but you're not like a practitioner of jiu-jitsu, but there's a few other things. You do a bit of boxing, you did, yoga for a little bit, and there's a heap of stuff you can kind of talk about.
Look, I'm 25 years old. I'm Anton's brother, so I have this genetic strain as well. So if you're familiar with Anton, then, I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But I'm 25 years old. I've just flown in from SA a couple days ago, and I do some boxing. I do carpentry is my background in trade, and I've always since the age of 12 or something, we started doing weights and exercise and whatever. So weights has definitely been part of my regime, and I've probably done weights training for 8 years or something consistently. Soccer was my background initially, so the physical aspect, cardio and running and endurance sort of stuff, and then just picked up boxing along the way as well. I probably started playing,
I think the first sport would have been rugby or cricket at school. I don't know, probably soccer actually before rugby, but same age, 10, 11, stuff like that. What about you, Lucas? What time did you start doing any type of...
I started soccer, so I was a soccer player.
Yeah, everyone's playing soccer. I was the goalkeeper though. I wasn't very fast.
Yeah. I was a midfielder.
Yeah.
No, I was very fast.
I was on the bench.
So I was right wing, playing the right wing.
Nice, man.
Very fast.
Yes.
And I started playing soccer was maybe 8 or 9 years old.
Okay, young man. Yeah. Everyone started.
Yeah, I played in a decent level in Brazil until 19 years old.
Yeah.
And then after that I stopped and started training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. He started fairly young as well. You played fairly decent.
I started playing soccer?
Yeah.
Yeah, club. I started playing at 11, I think. Club. And then I started going to better clubs or whatever. But then it became too political, either the dad's someone's dad's on the committee or whatever, and then it just becomes about who's funding the club. And then they get lifted to the next level.
Yeah, it's the same thing in Brazil.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. But let's talk a little bit more about moving into athletic kind of area, to do with weights and stuff like that. Does anybody know what age they started lifting weights and stuff like that? I started pretty early. Now I actually started
too. So there used to be this thing with a gym. I'm not going to mention the gym because it's not necessary, but they had a thing in the holidays where they wanted to encourage younger people or youth to start training at a younger age. It's also a business thing to get younger people in the gym, so they end up with the memberships, right?
Yeah.
But
you get a free membership.
You get it through the school holidays,
like
right? So I reckon I started lifting weights at 14, properly at a gym.
Yeah, I reckon I lifted. Yeah, probably not at a gym. I remember I would get mum to buy, barbells and weights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is already when I started to
We had a weight machine thing at home and sit up benches and stuff like
that.
that.
Already, this is from rugby.
From 12,
stuff,
man.
So so that's when I started to move into rugby. So I would have been 12 years old, and starting to get equipment and things like that to train and get a barbell and a flat bench and blah blah blah.
Man, our mum used to be a gym junkie, right?
Yeah.
And back in the day when we were kids, she wouldn't be able to get a babysitter, and she'd go do a pump class, with the weights and whatever.
Like a circuit class, what they call CrossFit now.
Yeah, what they call CrossFit. But and she'd just put us on a piece of equipment and just be sit here, don't move, and go do the class. So we had an influence from the gym pretty early on, I think.
Yeah, that's probably something. But I remember starting probably 11, 12, moving into playing rugby, 12 years old, put weights and you need to do this and blah, blah, blah. But I remember starting to do programs, and I would research stuff from MMA. I think actually the first proper workout circuit thing that I looked up was a super old workout sequence from Randy Couture. I remember he had like all these DVDs and all this stuff like that. And when I was probably like 13 or something like that, and I did like a circuit, it was like 6 exercises with a barbell, nothing else. And you just did that like, he's like, man, I do like 10 cycles and all this stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, this is not going to make you look like a bodybuilder or anything, but you're going to be strong and everything. And I was like, oh, I'll just do that. Because they had like all basic movements with this survival, like a deadlift, like a squat, like an overhead press and everything. And
all compound
lifts. All compound lifts, all the basic things. And yeah, man, I used to do that like every time I would work out, like, you know, 3 times a week or whatever, I'd get that thing and put whatever weight I could do and then just do the whole sequence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like 3 times a week or whatever. Yeah, that's something that like this is something that I've encountered a lot, like kind of competing and stuff like that, and just in general, like people always like attribute all the success you have in whatever you're doing to your athleticism and stuff like that, and it's like there is a massive component that is helpful and stuff like that, but it's not. That's only one side of the coin. You know what I mean? You have to be athletic and powerful and. You have some genetic gifts and things like that as well, but you also got to work super, super hard. It's a super common thing that you hear people just at the gym like, but that guy's on steroids. It's like, yeah, but he's still working super hard. You know what I mean? Like, for like a bodybuilding, you know what I mean? Like the guy's this man mountain huge. And yeah, the guy is using supplements and things like that, but you're also working nowhere near as hard. You come to the gym twice a week and then you complain. And, I think like a lot of people have that experience, you know what I mean? Whether it's about jiu-jitsu level or about, you know, oh, this guy's making money in businesses. It's really easy to kind of go, oh, well, you've got all these things and it's easy for you, but it's hard for me. And that kind of attitude is something that is becoming more and more like common, I think. It's easy to be the victim of life and instead of like fucking taking control of your stuff and you know, taking charge and actually getting the outcomes you want. I don't know if anyone else has kind of experienced that or whatever, but I definitely have to do with jiu-jitsu, like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think it's something that I've noticed just in people's behavior and attitude, but the biggest thing, it's like a seesaw, right? It's like you don't really start noticing results and effects after 3 months. And the thing is, people just, everything's like a now culture. Like you click everything at a button and you see everything. Everything's always instantaneous, transactions, exchanges, whatever it may be, but like it's a seesaw. You actually have to ride the seesaw, and the thing is, it gets harder and steeper as you get to the end, but as soon as it tips over that, like
I know what you mean, like
scale,
the threshold,
and then you actually have momentum in your favor. But most people don't really ride that wave out long enough to
get over the hill,
exactly,
to get to the next level and level up and then do it again.
But I don't know.
But that's hard, man. It's hard in everything. That's why. You know what I mean?
Patience and persistence. The main thing with progressing or achieving or getting anywhere in life is consistency. The thing is, man, you just have to turn up time and time again. Doesn't matter. And the thing is, like, the time conquers all. And like, if you're gonna come and rock up to the gym and you're gonna put in the time and the hours and the effort and the thing, man, like, the truth is undeniable. And the thing is, like, if you're gonna witness or like you're gonna put in this time, like, you can't deny someone's hard work and their labor and the fruits of their labor. And the thing is, like, this particular effort and the energy that you're committing to this, like, no one can take it away from you. It's like someone that's overweight, for example, is like, they're like, oh, I ate chicken salad and whatever. It's like, no, man, you're eating Doritos. You can't hide the fact, like, there's always some sort of, like, obvious signal. Like, you can't hide it. If you're the truth and you're truthfully doing this, then, like,
it comes out
it's
in
obvious.
Action
and the thing is, like, it's readable with everyone can see it and everyone can witness it. The thing is, like, if you're going to come and dedicate yourself to this wholeheartedly, then, like, man, no one can ever take that away from you, because you have gone and ventured so far and so or to a point where it's just like you can't, like, you know what I mean? Like, I
think anyone can take it out, the hard work you did, you know? The knowledge you acquire from anything you do, like jiu-jitsu.
I think, like, what do you say to people? What can you say to people that, like, man, that do? Because there's people here at jiu-jitsu that do that. There's people that are struggling with their businesses. There's people and they think they're working hard. The problem is, this is what I think, and you guys can weigh in on it, but people actually do work hard, or for them, what is hard, they're putting effort in. but a lot of people put this effort in a direction or in a way that it kind of just
it's not
waffles
really
out. It doesn't work.
I know, but it's not really effort then, is it?
No, it is. It's still effort. There's still work. Like, man, there's still... Like, for example, there's people that have come to this gym that do turn up 6 times a week, that have trained, but because they cannot change the way they take in information, because they cannot... They're so stubborn in their way that even the way they do this is ineffective.
I know, but that's just that's an attitude and a perspective. Because the thing is, like, if they see things a particular way or they have a particular attitude, like the biggest thing is openness. If they're not open to actually exploring new avenues
and evolving,
and the thing that sucks about that is, like, at some point you're going to be reduced back to square zero, right? You're going to be like, oh shit, I don't know anything about leg locks. I don't know anything about arm locks or carpentry or painting or business or whatever. And the thing is, like, people suffer this thing with pride where it's like, oh, I have a credential or an accolade or something that represents what I am, and now it's taken away from you because you're now realize you know nothing. Like, when you have to suffer that, I guess, blow to your pride or your ego or whatever it may be, like, it's hard to go forward and be like, oh, like, I actually don't know anything. And now I have to commit to knowing or actually, you know what I mean?
I think a lot of people use that sunken cost fallacy as like an example. It's like...
What does sunken cost mean?
So sunken cost fallacy is like, for example, Luke has a business and I invest 10 grand.
Yes.
And then he's like, man, everything's great and blah, blah, blah. It's like, but I need another 5 grand because this thing's got a problem. All right, here's another 5 grand. And then he goes and he comes back 6 months later and goes, oh man, look, everything's really good, but I'm having some more problems. I need another 2 grand, but then it's going to be all good and you're going to make all this money.
Yes.
Yeah, here's another 2 grand.
Yes.
And then he comes back 6 months later and asks for another grand. The thing is because you've already invested 10 grand, you don't want to just let that go.
Yeah,
so you spend another 7. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
there's a similar thing in poker, for example. Poker, it's like once you're already invested, it's like, do I go all in or do I like...
Yeah, correct. It's the same,
fold?
it's the same idea.
But the thing is with a fold is you're making a loss. And when that's like cutting your losses in life.
Correct. This is the point that I'm about to make. Right. So the thing is like people do that with jiu-jitsu or business or whatever. I'll use the example of jiu-jitsu. There will be people that train here in a particular way that have a certain skill set after 10 years. That's not very effective. But instead of recognizing that and going, oh, the way I've been training, the way I've been doing things and what I've done for the last 10 years hasn't worked, I need to change that. They just go, no, the way I do things is correct and it's going to work and I'm going to make it work, and they just keep doing it that way.
Not necessarily. They're just unhappy with, like, they're not really progressing.
I know, but they don't want to change, and the reason they don't want to change is because they've committed 10 years to doing it that way. They've
committed to it, yeah, correct, and it's what's familiar. And that's when people sort of get stuck in the cycle of repeating the same errors and the same flaws or the same whatever again and again and again. But that comes down to a sense of pride because they can't accept the fact that, oh crap, I've done something wrong for so long now.
Yeah, it could be pride. It could be that they just don't want to realize that they're flawed.
I think some people, they don't even realize.
I agree, man. Some people can't even figure out that they're in that cycle or that like they don't have the ability to comprehend how things are. I totally agree, man.
Okay.
Some people really do come here and train as hard as they can. And I'm sure people do that in their businesses or whatever. But the thing is also is they're not open and committed to like continually evolving. Yeah. People kind of get comfortable in certain situations. Like you can talk about it with age, and a lot of psychologists do. They'll talk about it like, oh, you know, after 35, it's difficult to change your ways and blah, 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 blah. And you can believe whatever you want. Now, if you look at the broad spectrum, that's probably accurate because people kind of it takes them 35 years to develop a personality that they're comfortable with. And now that they've developed that, they're like, all right, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And then like when it comes to recognizing like, wait, for the last 35 years, what I've learned from my parents, what I've learned about life and the way I do things and my friends doesn't mean it's correct. Yeah. That's not the right way to do things. But people can't. They don't make that decision or differentiation. They do think that is the only way to do things. The way I do things is correct, and the way other people do things might be wrong in their opinion. Yeah. But the thing is there's no correct way. There's just things you do and outcomes from that, and that's something for people to read. That I think people struggle with understanding.
Yeah, it's easier to analyze other people's like lives.
100% than your own.
Rather than
so much easier to throw
your
rocks
own,
and look at your own
Like
life.
cast stones in
It's,
someone
it's
else's
hard
direction.
to look yourself in the mirror and talk about your, the mistakes you commit.
Yeah, inwardly.
And,
yeah.
It's hard.
Super difficult, but it's necessary.
Oh, but
if
it's
you never do it.
it's very confronting. But I think conflict in some cases is probably one of your most useful tools in a sense, because when you stir something up, you have to find a resolution.
Yeah, it's a catalyst for creating an outcome.
But in doing so, that's like destruction is actually the foundation for like new growth or something productive or constructive.
Yeah, evolvement.
Yeah.
For example, let's use a jiu-jitsu analogy.
Oh.
The only reason I'm going to improve in leg lock area is because people keep submitting me on leg lock, so I'm losing and not doing well. So I go, I need to correct that, and I do, and I improve on it. And the thing is people have opportunities to do that in literally every aspect of their life, but instead people kind of, again, I don't know whether it's an age thing or a made up mind, but I think people just set their feet in the ground and say, no, this is the way it's going to be, and they refuse to use those opportunities.
Yeah, but when you're saying like people get submitted, again, in a sense, it doesn't matter what aspect, whether it's like in jiu-jitsu or anywhere else. Like there's a level of suffering to that, right? You're suffering
100%.
some sort of
100%.
consequence, and without suffering, you cannot grow, because if you don't suffer, you can't really evaluate your circumstance and the situation and what's going to happen, and
I agree.
move forward from that. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, 100%.
One thing that I would like to ask you, Andre, is I use this whoop strap, which
What is that?
let's
For
explain.
example,
so
I have no
the
idea.
whoop strap, it's like a sleep coach.
Yeah.
Okay, so helps with my
Sleep coach.
Sleep.
Sleep
yeah.
coach. Okay.
So it tells me how many hours I need of sleep to pick in the next day,
Yes.
this sort of stuff, and also records the strength of my day.
So like a physical output in energy or heart rate, like how does
It measures because of the heart rate.
Yeah.
It says how strength was, if it was high or low.
Yes.
And we have groups, and I have a friend that works as a trader.
Yeah.
And his strength is always the biggest of the group.
So you have like a group of people that you connect with on the app or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, there's many groups. We have one group of friends, and this friend of mine, he works as a trader.
Yeah.
He's a carpenter as well, and his strength is always high.
His output is one of the highest in the
One
group,
of the
right?
highest. And I train jiu-jitsu twice a day,
Yeah.
and sometimes I go there and I look, and his strength
How
is
does he
bigger
do
than
this?
mine.
What is this?
How? He didn't even work out. What happened?
Yeah.
So my question is, working as a trader, do you think that helps in your fitness level as well?
Absolutely. Like one of the reasons for that is I think just because it depends whatever the person's doing in their routine as well. I don't think it's like key just to doing the trade, but I think the biggest thing with doing a trade is you're constantly activating, like you're constantly in an activated state. You're always using the musculature, you're always using your body. And the thing is, like, if you're going to add that with, say, weights or with training and stuff like that, then
It's like doing constant weights to a low level weight.
to a low level, but it's still a level of conditioning, because whether you're carrying this or carrying that, any physical labor
Resistance,
or resistance, you know what I mean? You're always going to be conditioning yourself. And the thing with like this constant activation is you're actually conditioning your body to always be prepared to be like
Under
performing
load.
at a particular level,
under load,
you know? So it's like, and with consistency, like also with the activation of muscle, right? Like if you read a book, you'll remember the knowledge if it gets used for years and years. Whereas if you do something physical and you start doing weights, for example, and after, like with the process of like hypertrophy, which is building the muscle, the muscle tears itself, it repairs itself. That's how it becomes bigger and stronger. If you stop training for 3 days, your muscle then starts to deflate and deteriorate. Like there's such thing as muscle memory. We're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But
atrophy occurs.
Atrophy starts to occur, which is after like 3 or 4 days, the muscle starts to shrink and deteriorate. And like with this, it's like a particular threshold. You're always like pushing this at limit, and you always will have that capacity to perform, you know.
Physically, yeah.
Physically,
because you're just physically under load, and your body's used to a certain amount of load.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like if you know like you know, anime and stuff like that in Dragon Ball Z. I remember watching when I was a little kid and stuff. They would have like this hyperbaric chamber thing like that would put pressure on them. So just moving around would like be a workout, and then they would like work out in there on purpose under this gravity thing to. So it's like you kind of like moving around with an increased gravity compared to other people because you're just physically carrying things and moving objects and stuff like that. And you know, like you're saying, it activates your muscles. So it kind of like keeps you strong for a longer period of time. The funny thing is though, there's like a flip side to that because I'm gonna bring like the tradie guys that are here at the gym,
yes,
that train jiu-jitsu, because they've now this is an error on their part. They're not focusing on the other side of like being healthy.
There's yin and yang to everything. So there's one doesn't exist without the opposite, and you always have to recognize that there's a compromise. Like there's a compromise with the decisions that you make. So
yeah, everything has a negative aspect to it, regardless of what it is.
Not necessarily negative, but there's an opposite.
Yeah, for sure.
Two sides to a coin.
Yeah, 100%. So they're super strong and powerful, and they can like perform, you know, with more power than the average person. But because they're so activated all the time, they start to get very stiff. And the musculature is just like rigid, and they get joint issues, and they get back problems, tendinitis, and all these things. Now, the problem for them is that leads to a high level of injury. Now, it only leads to a high level of injury because they're not using that opportunity to correct it, like we talked about before.
Which opportunity?
Well, when you have any type of destruction or issue or problem, that's an opportunity to grow and improve and better yourself or level up or whatever you want to use as the term.
Yeah.
And they don't. They're just like, whatever. Who gives a shit? And I think that's like a tradie thing or a guy thing, like a tough guy thing where it's just like, whatever, man.
She'll be right.
She'll be right, whatever.
Yeah.
Put some glue on it, boom, it's all good. And then... But the problem
just
is...
wrap it up, duct tape.
Duct tape it up, whatever. You know, if they're an electrician, whatever, if they're a tiler, they just put some concrete on it, whatever. Yeah. Like, you know
just
what I mean?
Rub some grout in it.
Rub some grout in it and spit on it, they'll be fine. So, you know what I mean? Like, the problem is like, particularly as you get older, and most of the guys that training here, you know, they're family people, you know, they're getting into their mid to late 30s, you know, early 40s and stuff, and man, your body can't keep up, and they're starting to, you know, completely deteriorate, you know, like particularly if you add jiu-jitsu. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's such a contorting sport. Like you're putting your body in such unusual postures, and like twisting your spine and twisting your rib cage and maneuvering in ways that's unnatural for a human being to move, or natural, whatever you want to say. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe we lose that natural ability to move that way, which is probably more likely. But for them now, it's completely unnatural.
Yes.
And it leads to massive injuries. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they'll be able to train for 3 weeks solid and they get injury. And they don't do anything about it. Wait 3 weeks, come back. And they're in this perpetual cycle of like, 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on, 1 week off. Because they can never sort that stuff out. And look, the hardest thing in life in general. Yeah, but the hardest thing in life in general is to find a balance where you can be comfortable. And that's what everyone's like fighting for and striving for every day, you know what I mean? But like that's something that guys that are strong, whether they're coming from a rugby background, you know, a carpentry background or a building background or anything physically manual where there's a lot of power and strength, is because they're so one end of the spectrum on it that they just deteriorate. And it might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, it might take 6 months. It depends how deep you're in already.
Yeah, but there's always like the counterbalance. I honestly think yoga is probably one of the best things I would recommend. From my own experience, I had shoulder surgery because I was building a 2nd-story floor structure, and I walked on one of the joists and it's pulled out. I've caught myself with both arms.
For people that don't know what that is, like explain, like how high is it?
So basically it's a 2nd-story floor. There's a floor joist.
How high up is it?
How high? Probably like 3.5 meters off the ground onto a concrete slab. I had like a plank underneath me or whatever to like get it up there. So I've walked on it. It's pulled out. They're at like 45 centimeter spacings, 450 in trade terms. And then, so there's a 900, like a doorway gap, right? As wide as a doorway. So I've fallen through there and I've grabbed or sprawled out and caught onto the things on either side of me. And because I've fallen forwards, like, I've all like hyperadducted the shoulder joint, and I've completely ruptured the right pec tendon off of like the humerus, which is the shoulder bone. Anyways, so after that, put me out of action for a little while, and like I just after about a year or so after recovery, I did yoga like full time for like 3 months. Right, I thought this was a good opportunity to exploit my weakness because I'd lacked flexibility from all my weights training and never really stretching and stuff like this. And it was probably one of the greatest finds that I discovered in this period of time. I realized how much compression there was on my spine, whether it's from weights, whether it's whatever. Like even, I don't see my brother that often, but he came down to Adelaide for whatever. He's like, "You're taller." I was like, "How? I haven't done anything. I've just been stretching." But you just notice how like open and free and mobile you are, you know? It's like lubricating the joints and you feel like...
Yeah, so you spent, 24 years doing the hard heavy duty activation stuff, and then you spent, and you can correct it. That's the funny thing, because there's a lot of people that have done stretching things and yoga things here at the gym or in general, and that's one of the key things that they talk about is like, this is one of the quickest adaptations on your body that can occur. You know what I mean? Within 3 months you can correct, you're doing yoga for 3 months or so and you've corrected 25 years of issues, but you were doing it every day. Yeah, and that's the thing.
I'll give you a rundown. I was doing at least like 5 yoga classes a week. My record, I did 3 back-to-back Bikram yoga. So 40 degree room, 1.5 hour classes. I did 4.5 hours of like yoga, like in that
in one day.
Even though it's like basic postures and stuff, but like when I do things
it's intense.
I think the hard part, for example, for us that do jiu-jitsu, like we talked about, for example, I put myself doing yoga 3 times per week during the morning.
That's good, man.
Yeah,
that's really good.
It was helping a lot. As soon as you start feeling better, you just stop doing it.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, it's like that's the gift or the trade-off. It's like if you actually balance the life with yin and yang. So yang is the really activation. Yin is sort of like the softer and more whatever. But you'll notice how fresh you feel when you come to training and turn up and you're like, I feel good, man.
Yeah, but that's the problem. People are like, I feel great, and then they start waning off the thing that's making them feel good, and then you kind of fall back into your old habit.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy because it's like an extra thing to your schedule and all the rest of it.
100%, and always time is the most difficult thing to balance out. Like you want to train this, you want to go and do social stuff, you want to fill this part of your schedule and blah 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 blah. And the thing is like, all right, you're gonna sleep, 7 to 8 hours, 9 hours, depending on what you do. Some people less. A lot of people say you should never sleep less than 7 hours, whatever. But let's say you sleep 6 to 9 hours a night out of your 24-hour schedule. Like, there's not a lot left. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna use the bathroom, take a dump, have a shower. That's
the first thing you mentioned.
No, man, that's 45 minutes of each day, right? That's
45 minutes in the toilet, man. What are you doing?
Not just on the toilet, like brushing your teeth, having a shower, doing all this stuff. That's an hour, right?
Breakfast.
So now you got breakfast, travel, whatever. So at the end of it, you got like 9 hours left, and most people work for 8 of them. Like
And then also if they've got children and all the rest of it, it's going to be a much more difficult schedule, and it's not really on your own part. Organizing things.
But I think that's the hardest part of life. It's finding the balance.
Yes, 100%.
And you're always going to be trying to balance like.
It's and the thing is, it is like that.
It's a constant struggle.
There's you're just juggling plates all day for the rest of your life since you turn 16 or whatever, and you become like an adult or whatever age you start becoming more independent. You start realizing, instead of your mum and dad holding the plates, now you're doing it. And it's like, oh my God, what do I do? Oh. And that's how everyone feels, you know what I mean? And the thing is whether you're 70 or whether you're 15, or 16 and just moved out of home, or 18.
The decisions, but it's not just on the individual to evaluate and choose and make their own compromise. It doesn't matter what decision you make, there's always going to be a compromise. Where am I going to gain the most? Where am I going to gain the least? Whatever you...
I know, but it takes time. Like, that's just through experience, man. Like, that's why it's always super good to have people around you that kind of have done things similar before, and you can kind of turn to them and have mentorship and stuff, which I think has kind of disappeared from society a little bit. Like, that doesn't really...
What's that?
Like, that mentor, like having people that you can turn to for... Like, people, like, particularly, in my opinion, in the westernized culture, like...
I think it's quite greedy.
What do you mean?
Oh, nothing. Like everything's at a cost, or it needs to be an exchange. It's like, I'll do this favor for you for this favor.
Capitalist system and stuff like that. But the thing is like, even before with the same type of thing, but like, people used to help out, and it was much more communal. Like, we've moved away completely from community. Everything's so clinical and corporate and stuff, and it's like, man, people are humans.
Yeah.
You're humans, but people don't even treat. You know what I mean? Like, the days of like, we have a slightly different, but most of the people that we know, that we grew up with, man, they don't go and hang out with their grandparents. They don't go and do family things.
Well, there's
with
different
each other.
values, absolutely.
I don't know, but the value over the broad spectrum of society has changed. Like, man, people treat their own family members with corporate ideas and stuff. It's like,
most people don't even give their family the time of day compared to their friends or whatever, and then that comes with appearance and all the rest of it. Like, how you're perceived by your peers and all the rest of it, rather than actually coming together and just being true and honest. And
to do with that, like, mentorship thing, like, I think that's massively disappeared, and I think that's why so many people struggle mentally, man. You know what I mean? Like, if you used to live in small villages or towns or whatever, like, man, you used to sit down and talk with your parents. You used to sit down and talk with an uncle. You used to sit down and talk with people and talk about, like, oh, you know, this is happening. I'm not happy, blah, blah, blah.
Now it's like, we'll sit down and eat dinner around the TV.
Around the TV and just look at this thing and
rather than
no one connects and
everything's
talks.
through like a screen.
Yeah, well, they'll talk on the phone and it's still not the same type of thing as like face-to-face.
Or even just as an experience, how many people have witnessed this if they go to a restaurant or a cafe or whatever, and there might be a couple or a family, and just look how like they're all on the phone rather than actually
interacting, engaging.
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, social media and technology and stuff like that. But I just think in general, like, how many people, if they're upset or whatever, go to their grandparents? Because the thing is like, they've had the most experience out of anybody you know that you're comfortable with, right? And they should be someone you're comfortable with, and a lot of them aren't. And that's also this thing that I'm talking about. Like, man, some people don't even have any type of relationship with these people, and that's their history. That's where they came from.
Yeah.
And they don't utilize like one of the biggest sources of information that's they're ever going to have connection to in their life. They don't even utilize it. You know, they don't go to them with problems. They don't go to them to talk. They don't go to them to do anything. They just sit in their room and, you know, message somebody on an online chat room.
That doesn't know what's going on with their universe.
Doesn't understand. And like, I think this is a big reason for a lot of like mental health issues and, you know, all these problems. Like, people don't help each other, and a lot of it's just because people don't ask either. You know what I mean? Like, man, if you got a problem, you gotta ask people. This is something that I find funny, and it's whether it's like, I've heard other people talk about it too. Like, if you've got an issue with piping or plumbing, you call a plumber. If you've got an issue with your car, you go see a mechanic. Like, I think there's a certain like stigma or whatever around certain things, particularly mentally, and I think it's just because it's not tangible. Like, if you're struggling with your mind, sometimes you might have to go see a psychologist.
Yeah, I understand, but I totally get the avenue. But the hardest thing, I think one of the hardest things for anyone to do is actually make sense and articulate and express the way that they feel, or the way that they think. It is 100%. One of the biggest challenges for anyone
on the planet.
Anyone will ever face.
And well, that's what any disagreement's based off, right? It's a miscommunication.
I don't know about disagreements, but I'm just talking about expression of self.
Not being comprehended.
Yeah, comprehending what someone feels is impossible.
Comprehend yourself rather than actually relay a message onto someone else that they can understand equally. And that's where I think experience is the relation to all. Because it's like, oh, I felt a particular way during this experience. So when you're sharing things like this with people, like, this is an avenue for you both to connect and grow. It's like, I actually sort of understand where you're coming from because my situation here was quite similar. And then you sort of feel a similar way. You know what I mean? And that's like the bond or the link. And then you can sort of talk, even if you're like a little bit off or whatever, but it's like a similar level or plateau, you know what I mean? That you can...
You can use experience as a bridging way of describing how you feel. Yeah,
absolutely.
Talking about family and the way people communicate nowadays, would like to ask, what about you guys? Because you guys have Russian background.
Yeah.
How was the culture and like the way you guys used to hang with family and stuff?
We always had a very, very strong family connection and like friends in the Russian community and stuff like that. And like our grandparents came from like villages, small villages on the border of Russia and China.
They came to Australia with nothing as like teenagers, you know, and not knowing people. Obviously, there was a bit of like a Russian community or whatever, and they stick to it with each other, you know, and.
That's something that you talked about before, that like the connection through experience, like those people are like lifetime friends because man, they went through the most difficult stuff you can imagine. And it's not like migrating now, like man, these people came from like
they didn't
escaping wars, didn't speak English.
They just come here not knowing anything, can't communicate, they somehow get a job, and then like every day's a struggle, you know what I mean? Imagine like it's complete foreign, you don't know, you can't speak, you can't even. You don't even have a way to express.
But that's why they were always, like all of these people, and people talk about it all the time, it's all of these types of people, they always figure out how to be some type of like success and survival, like man, because that's what they're experiencing, and they're forced to, by default, by the situation they're in.
But they also make a decision there. It's like, oh, do I want to go ahead with this? Am I actually going to do
I know,
this?
but the driving force is so strong because like the other option is like, man, I'm going to just be in complete suffering. Like I'm going to die. I'm going to like, what am I going to do?
You're going to suffer immediate consequences. And when your life's on the line like that, in a sense, right, you have to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, you're going to be creative. You're going to be whatever.
And this is one of the hardest things. Like I think this is almost a mental state or a level that people could almost practice. It maybe not to a full degree, but like to a lesser degree or whatever, whether it's with their training, whether it's with their business, like you have to have this sense of urgency and continuation where it's like, oh, like I need to get this done, you know, otherwise like you can, but there's no right or wrong way to live. It's just depending on what you want to do. With that, there's always a compromise, your time, your schedule, all the rest of it.
Yeah, you can stress. We can compare this driving force you're talking about with, for example, the UFC athletes, for example, I'm gonna talk about the guys from Brazil, right? Charles Bronx.
Yeah.
He's from the favelas, and the guy, man, his driving force is unbelievable. The guy's from another world, you know, because it's the only thing
they have. That's it.
There's it's the only thing. He knows. He believes 100% in that thing.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work,
they got nothing else.
There's no plan B.
There's no second.
There's no plan B.
Yeah, correct.
Plan
There's no second option.
This is all I got, and it's happening.
Yeah, but that's also like, you know what I mean? Like that's what a lot of people talk about too, is like people from like these first world countries, like they're like a you know what I mean? Their problem is how easy things are. They're a victim of their own circumstances, which is life's too freaking easy, and because it's easy, man, there's no urgency to do anything. Why would you go and get a job and get the house you want and buy the car you want if you're just getting whatever payment you get from the government or whatever?
It's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, it is, but their driving force is nothing because they're like, yeah, it's fine.
Oh, comfort's a dangerous thing.
It is a dangerous thing, yeah, for sure. You get too comfortable with whatever.
In terms of productivity,
yeah. And the other, like, just moving back to your other question, but like to do with culture and stuff like that, I think a lot of the culture and like stuff that they kind of push towards us has got to do with that, because that was their experience of their life. So it's always been about, you know, working hard and you know, making as much as you can and doing all these things and like, you know, being not comfortable, but like, man, always, it's like they were kind of like pushed into a state of continual growth or whatever by default, by coming to this country, by leaving their place, and they were pushed into that state. And I think...
But there's also a flip side to that, right? People that came from a country where they had nothing were like, look at all these opportunities.
Yeah.
You know? And then people here might get upset because it's like, oh, look at all these foreigners or whoever it may be. But it's just like, man,
that's life. That's where it is,
taking their opportunities and taking their L's with their wins, you know what I mean? So wherever you can find the balance in life and get like one up, you know what I mean, or double up somewhere, then absolutely, like anyone's gonna take that opportunity
for sure. And like continuing on with that, like culturally, that's I think been a massive part of it, and we've always only ever had like complete transparency. Like I don't have any recollection of people being like, oh, like there was no coddling ever. You know what I mean? Like if there was something wrong, what are you doing? What's the wrong with this? Like, this is wrong. You need to fix it. Or like, and I think that's one of the reasons that we are always like pushed to have the highest standard of things, because man, that's the only thing that was acceptable. That was the only thing that was like, it has to be this standard. There's no compromise. There's no compromise for, because you feel sad. Who cares? You get there and you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Your feelings don't change the outcome. It's the same with their feelings. Like, I don't feel good today. I'm not going to work. No, if I don't work, I don't get food. If I don't get food, I'm hungry.
This was one of our grandfather's expressions. It's like, what you going to do? Sit and cry? Like, what are you going to do? Just sit here and like...
and play with your thumbs. Like, that's... And man, this is a cultural clash for a lot of people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people that we deal with, even me teaching, like, people get upset with me because I'll be like, man, you need to do this, you need to change this, you need to do that.
It's just...
And they're not used to that, but I am. You know what I mean? They're not used to that at all. And it comes off in a way that I'm aggressive or whatever. But it's like, look, I'm not here to think about your emotions. I'm here to do this job. My job is to make you good at jiu-jitsu, whatever.
Can I just add to that? Yeah. So, like, basically, it doesn't matter. This is like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, for example. But in order to achieve things, by any means necessary. So he's not trying to be rude. He's not trying to be personal. He's not trying to direct something or energy towards someone or whoever it may be. But it's like, I'm trying to achieve a result. And the thing is, to achieve that result, there's certain steps that need to be processed or need to be achieved. And this is no different with any skill, any way of dealing or whatever. It's like, I need to get this done. And like, that's like discipline though, as well on his part, because he has to execute this time and time and again to achieve a particular result, whether it's running a class for the day, sticking to schedule, getting somewhere on time, whatever it may be.
But just like the catch-22, like sometimes that's not helpful, because the people you're talking to or the people you're instructing or the people you're dealing with, you talking that way is actually going to damage their ability to learn. It's going to damage, because everyone's different. You know what I mean?
Sink or swim, like some people will absorb it differently.
I know, but like the thing is like, just like we talked about with the balance before, I need to learn, and this is something that, because I've never, ever experienced, like, man, there's never been a softness, a delicate.
We don't deal like,
we're not tactful in like, oh, are you okay? Oh, by the way, just do it this way. It's all right. It will help. No, man, do it like this. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
I think
do this, do that.
I think that...
And that's something that I've had to improve on a lot. And I have improved on it, but it's still never going to get to a point that it's like I'm going to be able to help the people that are on that end of the spectrum. I'm still over here. Like, that's the end. All right, I moved 3 centimeters this way. And I don't know if I can get to the middle. The middle's, in my lifetime, it's impossible to get to the middle. Because I've spent 25 years here, but every day you try and do this. And there's other people on this end of the spectrum that need to be like, okay, when you do the triangle, grip on your shin, and that's just the way that, and I'm being silly and making fun of it, but that's what they need, because that's what they've received their life. And it's not wrong.
That's what they respond to.
That's what they respond to, because that's their experience. My experience is this, and neither way is wrong. This is their way, this is my way, and you have to somehow find a way to kind of bridge and meet in the middle, and it's not always possible.
And I think this, it kind of builds the way your character.
Big time, for sure.
It's, for example, the way my mom used to treat me when I was a kid. Like, I'm feeling sick today, Mom. I don't want to go to school. Who cares? You're going to school.
It's like, you'll be fine. I know. It's
my
like,
entire life was like this, and I see kids nowadays. They get days off. I have a day off today. What do you mean day off?
For?
Because I asked my dad. That's it.
Because I asked my dad, and I have a day off today. Day off for me, I've never had a day off of school.
The only time we had a day off at school is our mum's like, I'm busy at hell at work, and I'm not wasting my time taking you to school. You guys walk it yourself.
So it was the same for me, and I think that builds to like the personality I have today, like being, like working hard and this kind of stuff, because I knew before the way my mom taught me when I was a kid was this way. There's no excuse, you know.
Yeah.
You're sick, you gotta do what you gotta do.
But that's like the toughness, and they also, because they,
building
for example, building character. But our mother was like a tough person, you know.
Yeah.
She raised 3 children by herself, you know, on top of trying to have a business and working.
And a successful business.
And renovating houses. Like, that's how she'd get by. You know what I mean?
She would flip houses. She'd buy houses, renovate them.
Resell it, and then try and make and live off the extra that she made. You know what I mean? So, like, a hard-working person. And, like...
And that comes from our grandparents.
But then because they have a certain, like, stress or situation for themselves where, like, it doesn't matter. It's not an option. It's like, oh, you're tough. You'll be fine. You know what I mean? That's just the treatment. It's like, oh, my tummy hurts. I don't want to go to school. It's like, you're fine. You know? It's no different to, like, does anyone want a drink of water?
Go get
it yourself. You got arms, legs.
This is a family joke. Yeah. Our mum would always, not like kind of as a joke, whatever, but she would.
No, she's dead serious.
She would announce that, like, oh, who would like a drink?
Who's thirsty?
Who would you like a tea?
Do you want some orange juice?
And anyone would be like, oh yeah, I'd like that. It's in the fridge. Go and get it yourself or whatever. Go and get it yourself. Go on. You got arms and legs.
Why would you offer?
No, it's just a funny thing that she does. It's just a funny thing, but like, that's the only thing that we've ever kind of experienced. And I think that's one of the major reasons that I'm good at jiu-jitsu. Like, along with, you know, some natural ability to understand physical things with my body and understand feeling and mechanics and stuff. But man, the mental discipline to just continually turn up every day and do the same thing in the right direction with the right ideas, with the right kind of positioning and stuff like that. So you're actually, man, you're getting better every day. Every day I'm getting better. Every day I'm getting better. You know what I mean? Like, that comes from that. That comes from that. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of it's, you know, your own personal stuff and everything as well. But, like, let's say, like, continuing on, like, I have to continue to learn the other side. And unless you're open to do that,
it's not really going to happen.
You're correct. You have to be open. Look, I'm openly going to say that I'll never be able to help this person completely, because I can't. Because
as long as you're
in my lifetime,
trying to improve,
I'm just trying to get closer to that. But in my lifetime, there's no way that I can go from this end to the spectrum to there, or even go to the middle, to be able to connect with that person better.
Everyone's different. I think there's a possibility. It doesn't matter. I know you say never, but I think there's always a possibility.
100%. But I'm just saying, I'm open to the idea that it's probably not going to happen. If it does, great. And that's the same way I think about achieving things as well. Like, I'm open to the possibility that I'll never be a world champion. That's the thing I'm working towards doing in jiu-jitsu. I'm open to the possibility I'm never going to have a family and children and blah, blah, blah. Worst case scenarios, I'm open to it. I'm not going to sit there and cry like my grandfather said, because you don't get the things you want in life. But I'm going to work as hard as I can to try and make those things happen. You know
I just want to add to that, because I don't really think it's a good mental position to say, like, oh, I'm never. But it's not never. It's like the rise is just as possible as the fall.
100%.
So the thing is, like, if you're gonna say you're at a particular level or standpoint or plateau in life, right? Like, you can spiral downwards, but you can also rise just as easily or just as quickly. So, like, I wouldn't. Yeah,
I don't think it's negative, dude. I think everything's completely balanced. Like, you have to be.
I know there's a level of being realistic.
Yeah, no, but realism or not, like, the mental, like, understanding that, like, man, if this happens or not, I'm still going to continue to get better and grow and improve, and that's it. And that's the thing that I'm focused on.
Apply yourself towards
towards everything, towards life in general. And the problem for a lot of people is that attitude that we inherited from our grandparents by default, just because of what they went through. And that's the driving force that's kept us always to improve.
We had a very good influence towards.
Which is, we're lucky for that.
We're very fortunate, but with that comes a lot of stress too. You know what I mean? Whenever you're always trying to achieve whatever, and maybe standards don't always get met. Like, there's a level of stress. It doesn't just apply to us; it applies to anyone
around us as well.
And then when you're trying to juggle life and then whatever else is going on in the background and work and like just your general day, where it's like, oh, now I'm gonna go grocery shopping. Now I'm gonna do this. Now I'm gonna go fill up on petrol. Oh crap! Another bill's come in. You know, when it comes to all of that, but. Yeah, like, the hardest thing then at the end of the day is just to, like, some days you're like, well, you know, I'm not feeling very good today. It's a bit of a crap day. Next day you're just like, you know what, I've just worked out, feeling really good, feeling really strong in the gym. Like, there's always going to be that fluctuation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everyone has good days and bad days, but just in general, like
overall, you're still like climbing.
Yeah, for sure. So but that's
zoom out and look at the big picture sometimes and be like, you know what, I'm actually doing pretty good.
For sure.
As an overall.
Yeah, I agree. So like back to the same point that I was kind of finishing on with what was I talking about? The
open to possibility?
No, not open to possibility. I can't remember. I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
All right, it's all good.
My fault.
It's all good. Actually, yes, it is. Open to the possibility of all that and all that type of thing. Like you were saying, the flip side to like being activated all the time with carpentry and everything, the flip side to like having that mentality of like, I'm never going to be happy until I get better. And the thing is like, that's kind of a difficult thing to take on because you're continually looking for more and more and more and more. And the thing is like, that's a really tiring, stressful thing to be around, whether it's to do with jiu-jitsu or business or whatever. So like he's saying, you need to be kind to other people. You need to be kind to yourself. And that's the thing that I struggle with is learning that second side is going like, all right, I actually need to stretch. I need to be less harsh with these people when I'm trying to help them improve, even though it comes from a place of love and care, because you want to give your information, you want to help them improve, and that's what they're there for, or you want to help them in life, whatever. Because you can't deliver it in a way that they find loving and caring. I have to work on that. You know what I mean? I have to work on that, and that's something that I will continue to work on forever. But like, that's something that's become so much more obvious doing jiu-jitsu, is like you can't just do one-sided stuff. Everything you're trying to always reach for that balance and reach for that balance and reach for that balance.
Yeah. Just in terms of like finding an avenue to express yourself or grow or develop, like I think like whether it's like jiu-jitsu is definitely one, like boxing or something physical or weights training or even just doing a business venture or whatever it may be. But like there's point A and point B. Like point A is where I am standing now. You know what I mean? Point B is sort of like a direction or some sort of level that I want to achieve. Yeah. But the thing is like in between is actually where you get to define yourself and your ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the joy actually comes in the struggle of doing it and
yeah, sure, it's a struggle, but the thing is like between this point is where you actually get to define yourself, your abilities, what you're capable of doing, what you're able to do, and then it's like, okay, now I've achieved this point. You know what I mean? It's like a milestone when you're actually climbing, but you're not actually defined by achieving the goal or starting at the point, like it's actually the journey in between. Where
that's the most important. Yeah.
Whatever the venture is or adventure or whatever, it doesn't matter. But like, yeah, you actually define yourself, and this is where you learn the most about yourself and your ability to connect with other people in this period or this time. You know, so like, I just from that, I'm just trying to say, or like, I encourage people to do more than one thing. If you're doing jiu-jitsu, or try to do a little bit of another sport. If you're going to do this, do a bit of yoga and stretching. You're actually going to learn your limits and like define yourself and understand more of who you are as an individual way better, and it's going to transition and you're going to be able to apply it to something that you're really passionate about way more. So like if you're going to
You're saying you can learn a deeper understanding of yourself through the action of going through multiple different activities.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many
and then that'll help you, if it's jiu-jitsu that you really love, it'll help you even more with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
No, I think that's probably true. You can do it that way. You can totally focus on one thing. I do think like the more you experience, though, the bigger your perspective is, and the bigger perspective, the better decisions you make.
Or especially with physical crafts, because like you will understand that whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's boxing, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's yoga, whether it's like hockey or lacrosse or soccer or whatever.
Every single Olympic sport.
Every single thing, right? The main three bases for everything is like structure, like center of gravity, leverage, and like body mechanics. And all of these, your body is a particular instrument, and in that way, like these
Yeah.
Like whether it's
So this is like the fundamental underlying concept for how things work.
all things, because
correct.
your body works in a particular way anyways, but like the more
people don't pay attention to the core thing that you're talking about.
But
they
the
just
thing is,
pay
the
attention
deeper
to
your level of understanding of the actual function of a joint and like this limb or whatever it may be, it's like the leverage and mechanic of this joint does this, and the rotation, for example, then you understand how it works. So then you actually understand how it works even better in a different skill or craft or art, and then it'll like relay over. And the more you understand how many different functions and options there are to use your own instrument, then you can apply it to something wholeheartedly, and you just have a way more like deeper and like fundamental understanding of what you're able to do.
Yeah, comparing what he's saying with jiu-jitsu is just like we trying to teach the concepts and teach the step-to-step the position
of how to hit a tennis racket, you know what I'm saying, how to hit a tennis ball. So you need the skill, and it's the same thing with the balance. Like some people are only really good with the step-to-step thing, and some people are really good with the conceptual stuff. Now, the thing with the conceptual stuff is...
It will come down to experience and knowledge.
Yeah, but the thing with the conceptual stuff is you can actually not know the techniques or not know the step-by-step and still figure it out because you understand the fundamental basis of what things is. Yeah. And that's also some people should look for in life. And that's... You need to understand how things are and how things work and how everything operates and the mechanism for everything around you. And if you understand the mechanism and how things operate and how things click over and tick and how the gears and cogs rotate, you can make better decisions in life. You can make better decisions in things. You're going to have an easier ability to do the thing that you want to do that you've made a decision on because you understand how things work. Mm-hmm. All right? But people focus too much on the face level of things. And because they focus too much on the face level of things, the surface level of appearance with social media and looking fancy and blah 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 blah, and never figuring out like what do I actually want to do? What am I actually going to care about? What do I want to be?
What is my true values?
And no one spends any time to do this stuff. Like they're always left like kind of in failure. Like with jiu-jitsu, it's like that. Like, oh, the technique didn't work and I can never submit my opponent. Yes, because you're not applying it within these parameters, and that's for everything in life.
Can be superficial. If anything.
There's certain steps in order to achieve success.
Yeah, there's certain parameters you need to operate within. If you don't operate within them, things don't work out, and like it doesn't. And how, like any means of success and blah blah. If you don't do these basic things, you won't achieve anything you want, and the more experience you have and the more things you do and the more things you open yourself to, and if you just approach things with an open, like I will accept all information, my lens is as wide as possible, right? And a like an attitude of like, no matter how difficult it is, I'm going to just figure it out. I'm going to figure it out and work on it. If you come with that attitude towards anything, you're just generally going to improve. And that's like, now I'm understanding the mechanism of how to kind of think about things to just kind of continually improve.
And you're definitely going to improve at an accelerated rate once you have or develop like your own sort of idea on how to filter and use the information, you know, but that comes with time. And actually just like the more you do, you know. Yeah.
Does anyone want to like kind of mention anything? Like, I know it's like a pretty intense conversation. He's super intense. I'm super intense. We just start screaming at the camera and go, guys, do this now. If you don't do this, you're not going to improve and stuff. But like, this is the only thing we've ever experienced. This is why.
But it's time. Like, I just think, like I started off saying, like, time conquers all. It's like, man, if you guys want to achieve and get somewhere, like, I know the topic would preferably like to be about jiu-jitsu, but it doesn't matter. Like, you define your own level of success, what it is that you want to achieve. If you want to become world champion, man, my brother has been doing weights and physical things, right? From an early age. Whether it's soccer, whether it's cricket, we did some martial arts and stuff.
Oh, yeah, we did some taekwondo, like super young.
Taekwondo, like maybe a little bit like Wing
for like
Chun.
3 weeks, and then we were bashing each other too much and we weren't allowed to do it anymore.
Yeah, but anyways, like on top of that, man, weights training, weights routines, rugby, weightlifting, and then jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different fashions that we sort of have an understanding of how to use our bodies. You know what I mean?
Kickboxing,
but then the main thing is, like, man, I remember
gymnastics.
I remember the first time
Tennis,
actually I went to the jiu-jitsu
volleyball.
gym.
Yeah.
This was can I mention like names or whatever?
Yeah, it was
BTT.
BTT in Adelaide. Was
In Adelaide. Anyway, so I don't know. I think you'd been going for a couple of weeks.
I
I
would have been
decided
like
to
13,
turn up.
14. He was
I would have been like
12.
or something like
I would
that.
have been 14. It would have been 12.
Anyways, like I don't know anything. No one's explained to me anything. They gave me a basic thing of this is how you hit the mat.
Yeah,
This is how you fall down and break your fall. And then like I'm just like lying there almost. I don't know what's going on or what I'm meant to achieve. And this guy gets me in like a punch choke, and it's like something's like snapped here. I've heard it, and then I'm crying, and I had a bad experience, and you know, so yeah, I didn't want to go there anymore. But like my brother here has like turned up to training for numerous years. How long has it been? 10+ years now?
No, not 10+ years. Because I had a break for about probably like 8 years if you add up all the time. Like, it's a fairly long time.
It's consistency. The thing is like, man, if you want to get good and you want to get better, like time is your biggest asset. You know, invest it wisely.
Yeah, 100%. You don't get it back. That is your most precious asset for sure. You don't get it back, man. It disappears and that's it. All right, everybody. You know, thanks so much, Andre, for coming in. I'll get you a shirt and stuff in a minute.
Yeah,
but thanks so much,
Thank
Lucas,
you.
as well. Yeah.
Lucas.
Thanks, guys.
Pleasure.
Thank you, man. Lucas, thanks again for being on.
Thank you,
episode 7, check that out. Peace.